Okay, so our project is Penn. I'm Gabe, and this is Eric.
So Penn stands for predicting emotions using a neural net. So our goal is to predict a person's emotions given an audio file of them speaking. So why would we want to do this? One, because we can. So especially in movies, people seem to be obsessed with teaching robots and computers about human emotions. And finally, in the 21st century, we seem to be able to make steps towards that. Two, because it's a hard problem. So often when you code a computer to do a hard problem, you learn a lot about that problem yourself. And three, because it's an important problem. So emotions are the reason that humans got to where they are today. We're inherently social creatures. And so solving this problem will give us a better understanding of each other's emotions.
Yeah, so to achieve this goal, we looked at 3 pre-labeled data sets and then 1 personally collected data set. And there's a lot of information here, but just an important part is that there's not always a 50-50 split between the genders. They had roughly the same emotion classes, and then the data set had fairly different sizes across each data set. And then using that breakdown, we achieved the following distribution. And again, there's a lot of information. The important part is that we had equal emotional distribution in training, validation, and testing. We had roughly the same gender split in each one, like 50-50. We had the 70-15-15 split that we wanted. And then lastly, test data has actors that's not in training or validation. So regarding pre-processing, we started with our original data sets that were in nested folders. We then rearranged them into just a flat folder for convenience. Then we loaded every single audio file using Librosa, which is a very long 1D array. We then augmented it 4 different ways, and then we converted each one into an MFCC, which is basically could be interpreted as a 2D matrix with length by number of MFCC bands. And then we split the data into training, validation, and test, and then saved it to a TSV file for further computation.
So our model philosophy is similar to that of the CNN in assignment 5. We have 2 independent kernels, one short and one a little bit longer. The goal is to be able to pick up on the short audio bursts versus the long audio slurs. So think of someone who is angry versus someone who is sad. Gabe will get to this in a minute, but that's our model summary. And just note there's about 100,000 parameters in our model.
Yeah, so as Eric said, our model is CNN, and so we have 2 branches, one for the shorter emotion path and one for a longer emotion path. And then we use a conv layer, and then we max pool, and then concatenate the results together into a fully connected layer, and then softmax to result into our 14 probabilities.
And so using that architecture, we did a hyperparameter search. This is our learning rate schedule, which is given on the left. And then we did a course-defined search for the remaining hyperparameters. Just some important ones to note. We're using the atom optimizer, cross-entropy loss, and a dropout rate of 25%. So then using those hyperparameters, we have these loss and accuracy plots. So note that it's overfitting a little bit, but not to the extent that it diverges. It just plateaus at different values. So we want to dig into the numbers, and we'll do that with confusion matrices.
Yeah, so here's the confusion matrix for our validation data set. We reached 89% accuracy, and as you can see, there's very strong gender classification and emotional classification, but the real test, if our model could generalize, is looking at the testing data set where it's actors that the model has never seen before. So here's testing, and we only achieved 42% accuracy, which is quite a big drop. And again, there is strong gender classification, but it fails to do that well in emotion classification. And so then we looked at the top 2 accuracy, which is just if the correct label is in the top 2 predictions. And so we reached 95% accuracy, which shows that our model isn't just randomly guessing. It is learning, but it just has some difficulties between certain classes.
And then finally, our personal data set. So the ultimate goal is to be able to demo on our own laptops. And so as you can see with no transfer learning, demoing on our own laptop yields nonsense results because audio is processed differently on different microphones. But then with just a little bit of transfer learning of only about 48 samples, we got 100% accuracy on the data recorded on our own laptops. Yeah,
so from these results, we could see from the accuracy and loss plots, there is some potential overfitting. Furthermore, from the validation and testing confusion matrices, we have strong gender classification, but slightly poorer emotion classification. Eric talked about the importance of transfer learning, where the computer just doesn't recognize our own data set. And then lastly, we ourselves, when we listen to some of the audio files, we are confused about the labeling, so we just want to play one for you guys to show that this isn't as clean.
Say the word mood.
So I don't know what you guys thought that was, but that was female fear. We had a lot of confusion regarding that. And then lastly, learning.
So finally, what did we learn from all this? So one, a clean data set is really hard to find, so not everything is as simple as an X and not an X. The lines between an emotion like sad and fear is a little blurry. Your model is only as good as your data set, so initially we were only using the RavDes data set with no augmentation, and our model did not learn very well. And then so we added 2 more data sets and 4 different types of augmentation, and now we think we have pretty good results with our model. Inherently, we are compressing 100,000 data points into about 6,000 data points through the MFC conversion, so we're losing a lot of information there, so our model might be limited in that sense. The importance of gathering data, so we personally collected our own data, which showed kind of why it's really hard to find clean data, and that me and Gabe are really bad at acting. There's a big difference between validation and test data, which you saw in the accuracy, about 89% versus about 42%. And so it's important to test your model on data that the model has never seen before so that you can prove that it's generalizing outside of the data set. And finally, transfer learning is both easy and powerful. We basically implemented the full pipeline of transfer learning and got pretty good results out of it.
Thank you.
That's really interesting. There's a bunch of questions. And you had some really interesting ideas. I was just trying to take it in. You didn't actually say what your data augmentation was.
Oh, it was on a slide.
Yeah. So we did 4 different augmentation methods. We used pitch tuning, noise injection, which is just adding random
Oh,
noise.
it's there, I see.
Yeah, random shifting and scaling.
Okay, that's fine. Can you go to that learning, you call it learning schedule?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Great to see that I'm not sure, I mentioned this in the lecture, I don't know if you picked it up from that, but this actually is a really important thing if you don't know what your learning rate is, and the number is not obvious, it's just, it's not always 0.01, and so this gets you, you can see you can pick a good number from this.
Yeah, so that's a logarithmic scale, so yeah, about 0.005 was.
Right, this is really great to see. And it's amazing, it's great to see, I mean, I know the theory of it, but you're saying you use transfer learning to accommodate a different microphone on your computer. And without it, without doing extra training on that extra data, I guess is what you're saying, it was terrible.
Yeah, so so we're both males, so our transfer learning model is going to be biased toward male because we couldn't convince any female actresses.
You're no transfer learning.
But it thought that our voices were female neutral. Like every data set thought we were female neutral. And then
Oh, so it's being more, so you're saying it's not just the microphone, it's the fact there's just 2 of you and you're a subset of the whole space.
well, no, just anything you input into the model recorded on our laptop microphones, it thinks is female neutral for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so that's great to see it, a great demonstration of an issue. It's fast. It's great to see. Last year in this class, you didn't pay enough attention to the fact that I tried to emphasize this year, and I'm glad you picked it up, that if you pick up your own data, it may have nothing to do with the training data, and you have to deal with that, and it's great to see how you dealt with it. That's a great trick on the top too, I guess the famous contests. I never quite got why the contests, and we haven't talked much about the contests, they talk about top 3, top 5 answers. I didn't know it was a cute little out when you get low accuracy, but I agree with your statement. It's a perfectly fine statement. You know, maybe we didn't quite get there, but we learned something, not nothing, up against.
Yeah, you wanted to prove it was generalizing, and I think that proves that, it at least is.
Yeah, I encourage everyone in their future careers to tuck that away. I'm going to tuck it away. I hadn't really thought of looking at top anything. I always think about the answer, so that's an important notion. Mike?
There's a big push to fairness in machine learning. So does your model do better or worse on male versus female? Does it misclassify one more than the other? Did you look into that at all?
The general trend seems to be that it thinks all males are angry and it thinks all females are sad. It's really misclassified the most. But generally, it's pretty equal, I find.
Yeah.
No?
I was surprised that the categories include the gender. Why is that? That's not how you started out, but then now.
Yeah, so our original model didn't include gender, and we were doing research, and emotions between the genders are manifested differently. So that's one of the reasons why we divided it that way.
So you chose to do that.
And many online or many other state of the arts regarding speech motion recognition do similar.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Any questions, suggestions, comments?
So what do you think the model is picking up on, like the emotion or actual words spoken?
I don't think it's picking up on words spoken. We didn't do any type of audio to speech or audio to text thing, I think it's just picking up on the waveform and kind of the pattern of speech rather than the words themselves.
So like the text is kind of the same.
Yeah. So in some of the data sets, like it's always the exact same sentence. So it's more about like how the emotions are manifested orally.
Is that do you think you could input somebody saying something angry in another language? I think that would make a difference.
I still think it would work because the emotions are manifested. Like it's not the text that we're speaking; it's just how the emotions are manifested. But that's something that we'd like to track. I think that's cool.
Yeah, there's a whole cultural question there. The different cultures express it in very different ways. So that's great. All right, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.